Hey there, welcome to Hiker Homily number 52. 52. And in this Hiker Homily, I'm going to pick up from what I did last time. I talked about the 10 essentials or so for day hiking. And this time I want to talk about my 10 essentials for backpacking when you're going to be spending at least one night in the woods, if not more. You're going to go into, usually backpacking is more of the backcountry than you would get day hiking. A lot of day hiking you're going to do at regional parks, state parks, even national parks, but you're not going to, because it's a day hike, you're not going to go so far out. You're going to go maybe 3-4 hours maybe out and then back. Or you're going to do some kind of a loop trail, but it's out there. But for the most part, day hiking, you're not in the super backcountry. You're within striking range of civilization, or a trailhead at least, basically. Where backpacking, you're more way out there, and you definitely, although some of the things are going to be the same as the last list, other things a little different. And so some of the simple ones is number one again, some kind of a tool that has a knife on it. I always have a knife. It's a multi-use tool. Everything from if you need to whittle wood, to cut food, to there's just all kinds of things. It's a defensive thing if you happen to need it that way. But always have some kind of a knife. And first aid kit. Once again, I have only maybe once had to use a first aid kit on a backpacking trip, and it wasn't on myself. It was on someone else. But it's good to have one. Now, some people use their quote-unquote first aid kit all the time because some folks include things like moleskin and things like that in their first aid kit. Now, I will probably put moleskin and stuff in the first aid kit. That's where I'll hold it. But I don't consider that using my first aid kit, me personally. That just comes with hiking. If you have blisters or issues like that you're going to break that out and you're going to use it. But I see why it would be considered first aid kit, and so yeah, maybe you do use your first aid kit, because there's a lot of people their first aid kit is very simple, and it's literally moleskin, a couple of band-aids, and that's about it. Maybe some ibuprofen. So yeah, first aid. So knife and a first aid kit, and then for one thing that kind of branches away from day hiking for obvious reasons is I'm going to have a shelter with me. Whether it's very simple tarp tent that I can build or my actual backpacking tent that I use, which is the REI Passage 2, is the current tent that I'm using for most of my backpack trips. I find it that even though it is heavier than some of the other options that are out there, I find it to be very sturdy, extremely simple to put up. It's self-standing, which I think is very important. I don't have to have trekking poles to stand it up and any of that kind of stuff. So I just find it very useful. And so that's usually what I go with for backpacking. But, as far as the list goes, shelter. Got to have one of those. That is on my 10 essentials. Another thing, the same as day hiking, is water and proper containers for your water to be ready to carry what you need to carry. Now that is going to differ depending on what kind of backpacking you're doing. If I'm going into the Sierras, certain time of year where I know the streams are going to be flowing and stuff like that, I'm only going to carry a small amount of water bottles or maybe just one hydration bladder with me because there's going to be a lot of water sources. Okay? If I'm going to be hiking the desert closer to the summertime, I'm going to carry more containers to carry water because there's going to be less opportunities to fill up in the desert. So you're going to be carrying more water. But regardless of what kind you are, you do need to have water and the proper containers to carry it. And along with that, for backpacking especially, filter of some kind. I always filter my water. I know there's folks out there who have the anecdotal story, I've been backpacking for this many years and never ever gotten sick. Awesome. I could say that exact same thing for the first probably 7 years that I backpacked, and then I got Giardia. So it was a lesson learned, and I just don't take chances because there's no reason to. Because there's worse out there than Giardia, by the way. Giardia is actually the lucky one to get, where you have it coming out both ends for a while, and that could cause problems in itself if you don't have someone taking care of you and watching over you. But it's basically recoverable. But there's worse out there you can get from the water, and so I just don't take a chance. I always have some kind of filtration system with me, and that goes along with the water. And obviously, a big one for day hiking, it was some kind of a snack or just something in case you need it. As a just in case. Well, for backpacking, you definitely need the proper amount of meals. Kind of plan it out. I'm going to be gone this long. That's this many meals. Make sure you have that amount with you. And that should be self-explanatory. I mean, water and food. That's obviously that's going to be your two essentials. So we got a knife. We got first aid kit. We got shelter. We got water. We got food. We're up to 5. So for number 6, it breaks into something different again from day hiking. And number 6 would be your sleeping system. And that's something as simple as your sleeping bag that is appropriate for the area and the season that you're going to be hiking in. In other words, I would not bring a bag that's made for household slumber parties, rated comfortable down to 50 degrees. If you're going to be going out in the Sierras in the wintertime, have a properly rated bag. Or even the desert at night, certain times a year. You want a bag that can keep you comfortable and warm below freezing. Things like that. Now, for other people, like myself included, the sleep system also includes a sleeping pad or something like that. So that would go along with the bare essentials. Something I've added to my 10 essentials for backpacking in the last couple of years that I never used to use in my younger years are trekking poles. Trekking poles for me have become invaluable in any kind of hike that is not just straight flat. Now, some of the training I'm doing where I'm just trying to get miles in for the day, I'm not trying to work on hills or anything like that, I don't use my trekking poles. I'm usually out on a levee road or a pedestrian path or something like that. So I'm just basically walking with my pack on my back and things. But if I'm doing any kind of hill work whatsoever, like I've done at, you've seen at Black Diamond Regional Preserve and some of the hills there that are to the west of me, a lot of good small mountains there to work on. Trekking poles. The last Sierra trip I did and the Lost Coast Trail trip, trekking poles. Total must for me. They are part of my 10 essentials now. I absolutely need them. They come in handy in so many ways. For some people, they need trekking poles because that's how they set up their tent. There are several tents out there now that require a trekking pole to be used to set up a tent. They're not freestanding. They require that. For me, they are just an extreme help to get up hills and down hills. They take some of the pressure off of my knees and my back, and my arms and shoulders help share some of that burden, and so I don't wear everything out. They're just very, very, very helpful. Next thing, just like even the stuff, if I'm going to go far out when I'm day hiking, just in case something happens. Again, not because I'm so far out day hiking, it's just in case I hurt myself and can't get out. But for backpacking, when you're way in the backcountry, this is very important. A GPS emergency beacon. I'm not talking about GPS like on your phone that tells you where you are. I'm talking about a beacon that sends a signal to search and rescue. If you get into a spot where you're lost or you are hurt and cannot move, you're stuck there, you can't get out, then you need to have that GPS that works on a satellite signal, not cellular, beacon that signals search and rescue where you're at, and they can come get you out of there. I think it's just an important thing. I know there's all kinds of people out there. Oh, people backpack for years without blah 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 blah. Yep, they sure did. I don't see what that has to do with anything. That was one of the arguments when somebody was talking about GPS. People, oh, well, you guys act like people didn't backpack until all this stuff existed. Well, what is that supposed to mean? What are you talking about? Just because people did it a certain way here because this didn't exist at the time, somehow that means don't do this, even if it's a good idea? Because how is it not a good idea to be able to reach search and rescue in case you need it? And if you don't need it, great. That means you had a good trip. You didn't get hurt. You didn't need to be rescued. But if you do and you don't have it, you're just going to sit there, well, this is how it was in the old days. I'll just die in the woods, I guess. Yep, I'm a pioneer. Because it is. Just some of these folks have this weird attitude that because it didn't exist before this particular time, we shouldn't use it. No, that's okay. There's a lot of things that didn't exist before a certain time, but they sure do come in handy. I mean, the irony of people on the internet arguing about how this didn't exist for hikers, blah, blah, blah. Okay, the internet didn't exist for hikers either, and yet you're on it talking in a backpacking group. Back in the day, backpackers wanted to get together. They had to get together and talk, or they'd write letters to each other, or through magazines and things like that. So why aren't you just doing that? Why are you using the internet? Because it didn't exist for hikers back in the, it's just silly. Anyway, enough ranting about that. A GPS beacon, emergency beacon, is important to have in the backcountry. Yes, that's an opinion of mine. I can back that up with common sense and a lot of stories about people who were rescued because they had their beacon, or were able to get other people rescued because they had their beacon with them, and things like that. So, yeah. Next is, again, I'm going to hear people groan about it, a map and compass. Yes, I know. How old-fashioned and all that kind of stuff. But once again, I know a lot of people have told me that, oh, I carry a map and compass, that they're all on my phone. My phone does that. Yep. And that's what I do too. Especially like for the Pacific Crest Trail, I'm going to be using the Guthooks app. And that's mostly going to be my map, is using Guthooks and things like that. However, I am going to have a paper map with me and my compass. If I never dig them out of my pack, that's just fine. I have no problem with that because they're not that heavy. But I'm going to have them because if I have my phone out and I trip and fall and my phone smashes, everyone who says, well, look, all these things are just on my phone, so I don't need a map, I don't need a compass, I don't need these things, my phone does all that for me. If your phone goes out for any reason, the battery dies, it gets smashed, it drops in water, you put it down somewhere on a trail, forget it's there and walk away from it, and then when you come back it's not there. A number of things can happen to your phone, and then all those tools that you've ticked off that are on it for you are gone, and you don't have any backups. So a map and compass as a backup, I use it. And then just like on day hiking again, I will usually carry, because they're very tiny and they don't weigh anything, a whistle, because once again the shrill sound can be used as a defense against certain animals. A lot of predators don't like that shrill sound. Bears, mountain lions, things like that. It'll scare them and scatter them. The sound of a whistle will carry sometimes farther and louder than a voice will, or for whatever reason you can draw breath but you can't make sound, your throat is too dry or whatever. In a rescue situation, you can use that to signal rescuers to bring them in close to you. So a whistle. I know it's kind of odd, but I've carried one most of the time in my backpacking years. It's just something to have for those various reasons. So those are my 10 essentials for backpacking. Now bear in mind that everybody has their own version of their 10 essentials, and there are even some quote-unquote official versions out there if you want to look them up. I know the Boy Scouts have a very specific 10 essentials. And that's a good way to start. That was kind of a good base. You can look at what they do and then replace certain things. No, I'm not going to include this. I just don't think I need it, but I am going to put this in and things like that. So agree, disagree, it's all out there. Not necessarily disagree, but do you have a different 10 essentials? if you feel like it, let me know and things like that. As usual, you can get a hold of me in the comments below. You can get a hold of me at hikingforhealthca@gmail.com or Instagram, any of those kind of fun places. Other than that, that is my 10 essentials, and that's Hiker Homily number 52. So we will see you next time.